Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous flight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Why do we celebrate Veterans Day? We veterans celebrate it for the guys that we remember. I'll tell you more about them later. But you hear about veterans like Congressman Chuck Hagel, Senator John McCain, Senator Bob Kerrey. However, most veterans don't go on to become congressmen or senators. Most veterans come back home and live among you. They just become a part of your community, but they are different because they are veterans. A difference you may not see. The difference is that the life they live is never the same as it would have been had they not served. Combat changes life forever. Now I finally could understand why my stoic father, who only once before I saw have a tear in his eye at the death of his uncle, he now stood in front of his home at the end of the sidewalk, crying, as Judy and I were leaving for her to take me to Epley Airfield in Omaha to leave for Vietnam. They feared losing a child. Yes, they still saw me as their child, their little boy. That is what I then recalled in my father's tears as I saw our daughter, Heidi, born. At her birth, I also was hit by the reality that the guys would never experience this. John, whose Cobra disappeared into the cloudy evening sky over North Vietnam. Billy, his co-pilot, who had only been in the unit 2 weeks. I hardly knew him. Bruce, who was vaporized by a rocket hitting his helicopter, his scout helicopter, shortly after he extended to stay in Vietnam an extra 6 months, only so he could build up his flight hours and get on with the airlines. Rebby, an armor-piercing round went through his front seat pilot, his instrument panel, his chicken plate, his heart, and his transmission as he flew his Cobra low over the enemy trying to protect civilians. He would have been home in his own wedding 12 days later. The list goes on and on. None of the guys would ever see the miracle of the birth of their own children. Each mountaintop experience is affected by the memory that none of the guys get to do this. That may sound like a downer to you, but let me assure you it is not. Why am I so moved by the memory of these guys? Why has each mountaintop experience, the births of Heidi and Josh, their honors, their victories in sports, their graduations from high school, college, and grad schools, their grandchildren, Judy's and my wedding anniversaries, in fact our 50th a few months ago, on and on, each of those memories involve the guys. You may be thinking in your mind that poor Mick, haunted by these memories for life. But let me assure you, you don't need to feel sorry for me. The memories are a blessing. Rather than a haunting, yes, they are a blessing. My memory of them makes each day a blessing, a day worth living, Not because I live it for them, but because I have been humbled with knowing the value of life through their deaths. What is it about combat that makes life never the same again? Since leaving my guys and returning home 47 years ago, I have not lived one day of my life without thinking about combat. 47 years, that's over 17,000 days. Every one of those days thinking about combat. It is the small things, certain smells, diesel fuel as I cross the street to go over to the bank from the parking lot, and a diesel tractor, truck, or combine goes by. That reminds me of Deuce and Haas and armored personnel carriers. Jet fuel at airports reminds me of jet fighters and helicopters. The burning of gunpowder when you play with fireworks reminds me of combat. That pungent smell of the rotting that takes place in the jungles, sometimes in the summer in Iowa and Nebraska, when it is humid and hot, you can smell a little bit of the jungle. And the sounds. A helicopter flying over gives me a homesick feeling because I want to be up there. The same firecracker whose sound first alarms me before I smell it. I will be talking a lot about combat today, and combat is war. But those who weren't in combat are still veterans. Most veterans have the potential of being in combat. That's what the Armed Services does in times of conflict. It is an amazing team, and that is your U.S. military. I hope when you see these veterans at an event like this, you know they aren't here because they loved war or glorify war. I hope you will understand that no one hates war more than a veteran. So the next time you say the Pledge of Allegiance or you're standing for the national anthem, think of the guys and the gals that have gone on before us. Obviously, many of you here today are a veteran or know a veteran. He or she may be your child, your sibling, parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, maybe your neighbor or friend. We as veterans just asked you to understand that today, Veterans Day, is our day. Not just a day of celebration, but a day just like every other day that we will use for remembering the guys. Won't you join us?